Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. In today's show, the shocking breaking news of mass graves being found in India, swollen with the bodies of young girls raped and murdered in large numbers. And it turns out those behind these dreadful acts could be being protected by Modi's BJP government. Meanwhile, we take a critical look at the slow pace of justice in India that is failing so many Sikhs and indeed Indians in general, not least the need for accountability for police officers who consistently fail to turn up to court, Jaggi being a prime case in point. And talking about sexual assaults against young girls, as always, it's the Sikh community taking the vanguard here in the UK as they set up the Sikh National Inquiry to gather evidence. We have full details of that coming shortly. But a good news story from Punjab Police for a change as one officer goes to new heights in the fight against drugs. All this and more on today's show. But joining me, as always, is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus. And in that story, he's getting high without the drugs. So that's beautiful. But welcome back, everyone. Thanks for tuning in yet again. We've noticed that the numbers are down a little, and that's not unusual, being that we are in the beautiful summer months and people are enjoying their holidays and their little break. But if there's something that you see that you would like to see us improve on as we retool the show, please reach out and let us know. Angus has his beautiful new studio that's almost ready to launch. We are slowly working towards getting on live. So again, we've got a lot of exciting things in the pipeline. If there's things that you think we can improve on, by all means, let me know. And look, my face is not red as a cherry tomato. So again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Back to you, Angus.
Indeed, absolutely. And don't forget, it's the wonderful summer in the Northern Hemisphere, but for our viewers in the Southern Hemisphere, it is heading into the depths of winter. But anyway, yes, today. Absolutely. So James and I today will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And at the end of the show, as always, we'll take a look at loads of your great comments, which have been pouring in. So thank you, as always, for those. Right, James, let's get underway. Lots to get through today. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
We're going to take a look at the court system in in India as a whole. There's not particularly any region that is worse than another when you take it in its totality. Now, one of the big concerns that we've discussed in the past is the ongoing delays, the failure of witnesses to appear. And we're not talking about just general witnesses. We are talking about state witnesses, which include police officers. They are failing to show up in court. They are actually even at a point where the judges are starting to issue warrants, bailable and non-bailable warrants, for the officers to present themselves in front of the courts. This, of course, causes substantial delays and another frustration for the judges because the law enforcement agencies are not even enforcing those warrants to bring the officers before the judge to present evidence. Now, what does this mean? Well, of course, we know that it is a slow moving machine when we talk about the justice system within Punjab, within all of India, right to the capital in Delhi. Now, we've spoken about this issue being brought up before with the judges, but at that point, it was the judges within the taxation and the civil claims departments that were really speaking out vocally. Now it's transferred over to the criminal court side where they are finally speaking out very loudly and very clearly. Now, what happened was that about 12 years ago, they brought in some reform to the Justice Act and to the justice system. Now, the intentions were very good. They wanted to make it a lot more streamlined and also put more responsibility to be shared between law enforcement and the prosecutors. Unfortunate side effects of that is that it was brought in very hastily and it was brought in without a real decisive plan that looked at all of the totality of the system as a holistic approach, and instead it more fragmented it. And this led to delays. So it's not just the officers not showing up, it is the system as a whole. Now, of course, with the backlog comes another concern, is that witnesses now are feeling very frustrated and they are refusing to cooperate because they don't feel that their time and their testimony is valued. They are starting to feel, and speaking with several of them through the internet, They've claimed that they are very frustrated. They don't want to cooperate. They sit there for a full day only to find out the witnesses are not being presented. And when I say the witnesses, in this case, we're talking about the police once again. So then they have taken off days from work. They have traveled the distance to be in the court, and they've taken great risk because in the system, there are no protection for the victims and those who are testifying either. They are subjected to threats, to some of them disappear, and this is an ongoing concern of the judges as well. Now, when you get to the point where there is a refusal of the officers to show up, even after being subpoenaed or warrants issued for them, of course, that translates into delays, and the criminals, in a lot of times, the accused, are happy to see it, because the longer it drags on, the more chances that witnesses may not be available. They may forget what they saw, and use that term loosely. They may not recall all the facts as accurately as they once did. And this only benefits the criminals. They are more than happy to see these ongoing delays. Now, one of the concepts by the judges is to bring in a stricter enforcement and deadline for cases to be heard. One for the preliminary evidentiary hearing, and then 90 days for evidence to be filed. So again, it is looking at different ways. But the judges are also realistic in the point that if they cannot enforce the orders for the officers to appear, then of course moving these deadlines is only going to hurt the system more when it comes to building or trying to rebuild the trust of victims to come forward. Now, the system in around 2012 had a conviction rate of about 80%, which is quite respectable. But since then, it has dropped down, and right now it sits in the mid 50% range, around 56% of convictions in criminal cases. So again, it shows how much impact that this is having on the ability of the courts and the justice system to really crack down on this. Another concern that was brought up by the judges is the political and financial as well as power influence in the system. They are finding that if someone is well off in terms of their financial status, or those who are connected to politicians or even politicians themselves, they're finding that the delays are even worse. And they are very clear in the fact that they know that there is more intimidation against witnesses, as well as a lot of bribery and payoffs to those such as police officers, the police supervisors, and so forth, to have the officers unavailable to present evidence in these cases of high-profile individuals. So again, they are looking at different ways to deal with this. Why is this so important? Well, you look at it and you have so many people that are languishing in the prison system. And at this point, of course, the prisons are overcrowded, and this is a part of the problem, is that people are coming in the doors, but they are not going out the doors as quickly as they should be. So therefore, you end up just multiplying the number of inmates within the institutions, causing major overcrowding, risks to employees and others who are trying to keep the prisons safe. And now a high court has also issued a major order of responsibility when it comes to the safety and rehabilitation of inmates. The justice system is also starting to recognize that the prison system is almost becoming something that is seen in the U.S. quite often, and that is overcrowded, violent cesspools that are not focused on rehabilitation, but instead on warehousing and just basically storaging these individuals. That does not do well when these people are released back into the community. They have met no rehabilitation goals and therefore become a higher risk when it comes to the recidivism rates of criminals being released. Now, the one point that I was going to bring up is that in the reports there, in 2012, the rates had dropped. Sorry, I just had the numbers wrong. I just wanted to correct that. Is that we were talking about 1972. The rates were at 62.7% for convictions, so still not too bad, but not great. But in 2012, they dropped to 38.5%, and now in 2021, standing at 59.2. So still very, very low on that scale. Now, something else that they have recognized is that there is a major lack of resources when it comes to the human resources, so police officers, prosecutors, and so forth. And they are not doing enough as a government to recruit new officers and retain officers. Instead, the officers are getting burned out because they have no relief when it comes to the shortage of manpower. Everybody's all hands on deck. And now a lot of officers are spending time doing security sort of work as opposed to actual law enforcement. One last point that they are looking at is the lack of specialized training for officers. So they don't have specialized areas such as a homicide department, a robbery department, special victims units, and things like that. So they are looking at where they can actually go in terms of correcting these issues and how to recruit and bring more officers on. But again, the challenge there is that they are not getting the financial support by the government as well. And that just exacerbates the problem so much more, Angus.
Yes, it's interesting actually, because in the case of Jaggi, we often talk regularly about his case and the fact that every time he appears in court, whether in person or by video link, it gets delayed, it gets postponed to a later date, primarily because witnesses for the prosecution fail to appear. And that includes police officers fail to appear. Now, we've always said, it's deliberate. You know, it is clearly a state conspiracy to keep Jaggi in jail. And I sense that is probably still very much the case. But it does appear there is a wider systemic issue in the Indian legal system. Clearly, that all these changes are really helping the system just slowly fall apart. And this is really dangerous because every democracy is underpinned by its rule of law, by its legal system. Its legal system is really the skeleton. It is the bones that ensure that a democratic nation can function, can systematically function correctly, that everybody feels that they live in a society where if they break the law, they will be punished consistently, fairly, and they know that anybody who does break the law, any innocent people, know that if a crime is committed against them, that the perpetrator will be treated fairly but firmly by a consistent law. Now, things fall apart, as it appears to be happening in India, when any element of that hugely complex legal chain stops working. And the trouble is, we've got so many elements, there are so many parts to this legal system. We have, of course, the victims themselves. If they feel they're not being treated fairly or consistently under the system, then again, the whole system loses credibility from the defendant's perspective, especially if you're an innocent and accused of a crime, and you end up as a victim, an innocent victim of a legal system that's not working. Again, the system loses credibility. Likewise, if you're a witness, as you refer to, James, witnesses, if they feel that they're being delayed, the system's not working, they just think, what's the point? I'm not going to bother turning up. Witnesses fail to start contributing to that legal system. Of course, witnesses are a fundamental part of a proper functioning legal system. So if they lose interest or faith in the system falls apart. Likewise, even the police officers, those who are trying to enact the law. So the prosecution who rely on police officers to turn up and give their evidence. If those police officers likewise are losing faith in the system, they will stop turning up and the cases start falling apart. So you can see that all these various elements, every single element of the whole chain needs to function at 100% capacity. It needs to work properly for that whole complex system to work well. Now, in the West, generally speaking, our legal systems work very, very well. There is credibility, there is belief in the system. They're not perfect. Every system has a flaw, but ultimately, Western democratic legal systems work very well on the whole. India is not working. The British Empire passed on a functioning system that worked very well. India has inherited this, it has changed it, it's tinkered with it, it's played around the edges, and it's starting to fall apart. And yes, it works for the convenience of the government in many cases, like Jagtar Singh Johal and the many Bandi Sikhs who are still remain in prison against any proper, any perspective of legal fairness. So the system is failing deliberately by the state. I think the state want the system to fail in many cases, but ultimately they can't afford it to fail because Indian society will literally fall apart if its legal system starts to functionally fail. It is a real danger in India. If its legal system is not working, then its overall society will stop functioning. Judges are calling this out. People in the legal system are the canaries in the coal mine, as we call it. They are ringing the alarm bells. They're saying, look, our system is failing. You've got to do something about it. The BJP government must really pick this system up and sort it out properly. Because if it fails, Indian society fails, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And let's not forget also that there is probably a difference. I know in a lot of Western cultures or a lot of Western legal systems that if you are charged under certain provisions of the Act, such as the National Security Act in the U.S., terrorism acts and things like that, or the National Security Act in India, that you don't get the same rights and provisions when it comes to bail and other issues. So even less restrictions when it comes to witnesses and such showing up, especially the Jaggi case and others where it's in the government's benefit to keep them silenced by keeping them incarcerated or detained. So again, even there's less protections for them. And when we talk about protections, one of the final things that they are looking at, the judges ordered for the states to bring forward their system and their policy about officers showing up in court and to see exactly what the mandate is to follow up and penalize officers or hold them accountable for failure to show. And finally, they are looking at the concerns that there is actually no program in place or supports for witness protection. So even when witnesses show up, even when officers show up, and the accused are in court, there could be threats or even, as I said, deaths of individual witnesses or their family members. And again, there are no protections afforded to the witnesses. So again, that's a major concern as well, Angus. So very interesting to see, but it's good to see that the judicial system and the judges are actually starting to call out the legal system in the criminal justice departments. Because we've seen it, as I said, we've seen it in the civil courts and the tax courts, but this is a big step for them to call out publicly, government and everybody else in the public eye when it comes to the criminal justice system. So good on them that they're trying to bring attention to it, but it's only as good as the willingness of politicians to bring it forward. Now, as we talk about the goodness, Angus, of certain individuals and police officers, whether they show up or don't, there is an officer from the Punjab that is going to new heights, as you said, to bring education and awareness to the drug addiction and drug pandemic or epidemic that's sweeping through many parts of India, especially Punjab. We've explored this in great detail, and there's probably a lot of reasons for it. Number one, of course, the border access for the Punjab region to be used as a transit zone to not only bring it in to supply those in Punjab who are dealing with addiction and using substances and to really feed that demand, but also to distribute to all other parts of the nation. Now, this has become another concern that there is potential of individuals using the substance abuse problem against the Punjab region. And in fact, they are trying to push more people into drug use and addiction in some places and some individuals as a way to destabilize even further the entire public trust and to increase the problems within Punjab and the instability of organizing things such as the Khalistan referendum or other issues when it comes to minorities or just the society as a whole that the government wants to push down. Now, this officer has taken it upon himself to actually make a major climb. He has climbed to an altitude of 6,080 meters, and he stood on top of that remote peak. He went up with a small group, and he has placed a banner flag up there that is standing up against drugs. So it says the war on drugs, and he is looking to raise that awareness, but also to show the young people, the youth of today, that no matter where you go, that you are going to be dealing with this issue. But if you strive to make the best of yourself and to really follow your dreams, your passions, and challenge yourself, that you can achieve great things. And again, using the bad pun, but you can rise yourself to new heights and new levels in life. So again, very, very interesting. Now, this particular individual, SP Garjot Singh Kalar, he went up, and this conquest was to the peak of Shinkan East Peak. And when he approached the highest points, he was very excited, obviously, but he had a lot of help. There were several individuals, as well as professional expedition teams, guides, and assistants that helped him, because of the fact that, obviously he had to ensure that his climbing ropes were safe, that he was protected from weather, all of this. So to have those individuals that are very well experienced expedition leaders, then that, of course, makes a big difference and makes it possible. Now, the group, as I said, of various climbers went up, and they had to navigate dangerous crevices and other, of course, weather and just different conditions. They also, when they get to that height, of course, the oxygen level is much thinner. So, of course, you start to look at what they call acute mountain sickness. And that can really come through in ways or signs of headaches, dizziness, nausea, and, of course, more risk of the high altitude cerebral edema, which means that there could be clotting in the brain and when the brain swells with fluid. So again, it really shows the dangers that could be inherent with making such an amazing climb. And not to mention that the temperatures can drop to about minus 40 degrees. Now, if you're not in Canada, you're probably not used to that type of rough condition and cold weather in the winter. So, of course, that brings on the risk of hypothermia, of frostbite, and other conditions that could come with that. The winds at times have reached over 100 kilometers an hour. So again, just amazing conditions that he was able to make that climb, to raise awareness about drug use, about the drug problem and the war on drugs, and of course a story about personal challenge and perseverance that I hope really helps to inspire others, because let's face it, as I said, there is a lot of risk when it comes to substance use and abuse. We're seeing it all through countries around the world, and any country that says they don't have a drug use problem, then they're probably just trying to bury the issue. And we need to see more of a collective solution as opposed to denial when it comes to the addiction issues, as well as holding those accountable who are at the forefront of it, such as the Sackler family with Purdue Pharma, who, of course, were responsible for the OxyContin debacle. So again, they contributed to the problem, and then they turn around and these big pharma companies, such as that one just named, are making money off of other drugs and things that are supposedly there to help fix the problem. So again, they created a problem and now they're making money off of fixing it, while claiming bankruptcy for their main pharmaceutical division when it comes to the responsibility and the orders in the courts that have been issued to hold them accountable for their part in the opioid pandemic or epidemic worldwide. Now, when you look at that, the supply chain is something that we've talked about, and I just mentioned a few minutes ago. But during the campaign, the Punjab police have made significant strides, arresting 22,854 drug smugglers in 142 days. That is an amazing amount of individuals. Just if you think about it, how many more are there if they were able to catch this small, in this small period of time, that many drug smugglers? We're not talking the street dealers, we're talking the smugglers bringing it in. So that is just an amazing level. And when you look at it, just recently in the news as well, was a mother and a wife of an inmate who were caught smuggling drugs into one of the prisons as well. So they've been arrested and incarcerated themselves. But it shows how thoroughly it is seeping into every part of the everyday life, whether it is for the mainstream or it is for those incarcerated in prisons. In some jails in Canada and the US, they say it's easier to get drugs inside of a prison than it is to get them on the streets. And that's a sad statement about the crisis. And finally, they really are moving forward. They actually have thousands of youth who are volunteering and others, but they really have empowered youth to go door to door to help distribute information on substance abuse, on addiction, and the other challenges of the drug war in India. So I think that is great because it gives them a sense of ownership in the program to help raise awareness and try to keep others off of drugs. And really in that community outreach and giving them a sense of belonging in the community, that they are youth, but they are a part of the solution. And I think that is key, to give people a sense of ownership in their community. It brings community together. It brings pride. And of course, the next generation will be leading the nations of the future. So it's great to see them getting in on the early stages of helping others, Angus.
Yes, drugs are such an evil, and they really form so much of a dreadful thing that damages so many societies, whether it's in India, whether it's here in the UK or anywhere in the world. And certainly we report regularly on the issue of drugs in Punjab, which are seen very clearly to be undermining, really dangerously so, the whole social fabric of the Punjab. And many of our audience members talk about it regularly, and the damage that they witness firsthand, the violence that it breeds, the criminality that it breeds, the young who get sucked and seduced into drugs. It's such an evil that causes so much damage to the cohesion of society. The youth the young who get involved in it, they again just completely lose their way. There's whole generations of lives and careers just lost to this evil of drugs. And it also, I think this story highlights that this sort of two-tier issue going on in India, particularly in the Punjab, is that drugs can only exist really with some form of massive resources behind them. Now, of course, the drug producers, but also there needs to be almost an acquiescence, an allowance for it to happen from a high level. And we conspiratorially refer quite regularly to there must be a will somewhere in India to let this happen. Now, on the ground, yes, we have very decent people, and there are many decent police officers who operate in India who are police officers out of vocation because they care, they want to live in a better society, they are motivated to improve society, to remove criminality. And this gentleman who's climbed this mountain is an absolute prime example of that. People who genuinely want to do good about their society that they live in. However, they are fighting against an internal enemy here. It's not just the drug cartels who are obviously making billions out of this evil trade, but it is also those in the shadows. And again, we refer to these people regularly. Is it a deliberate policy to let drugs pour into the Punjab? Because is it the RSS? Is it the Brahmins, the Hindu force? The forces that are deliberately trying to undermine Sikh society in the Punjab? They know that drugs are actually one of the easiest ways to break up that cohesion, that cohesive Sikh community, to really undermine its power, its ability to bring about change, bring about positive change. And they know that by injecting, excuse the pun, injecting drugs into the Punjab, it is actually breaking up that resistance to Brahmanical control. And that is the fear. And of course, then it creates this tension, this social tension between those who are trying to stop it, and that includes police officers like this, on I guess this guy's a Hindu. And there are many Hindus trying to stop it. There are many within the police trying to stop it, clearly. But of course, the Sikh community themselves are trying to stop it. There are many activists who've stood up actively to try and stand up against it and fight against it. They find themselves actually, ironically, being arrested and tortured for their stance by the bad elements who actually, again, represent those in the shadows. So you've got this sort of secret civil war going on in India, where there are those trying to stop it happening, and that includes Hindus. It does include many police officers, and of course it includes the Sikh community and others who are trying to stop it. But behind the scenes, you've got those who are secretly in the shadows, actually letting these drugs go into the Punjab, encouraging it, allowing those channels of the supply chain to let those drugs get in there and do their insidious damage. So yeah, James, it's I think there's an awful lot under the surface here that we don't know about, that we can only guess about and allude to.
Absolutely, Angus. And I love this picture here because it brings together the people that supported him in this amazing feat of climbing. But there's a gentleman on the left side when you're looking at the picture. Everybody looks so proud and happy to be there, but he's kind of like, yeah, all right, we've done it again. He just doesn't look too excited to be there. But I'm sure that, being experienced guides, that, he's been there a million times, but just the fact that they did this. Now, I did want to bring up just a quick one, a shout out to his team. And I'm just going to pull up the names here because I thought that it was a great work and a great team effort to bring this to fruition, this climb. So again, the guidance and logistical support for this was the Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and I probably said that all wrong, but the Institute of Mountaineering and Allied Sports in Manali, and they were under the direction of Avinash Naji and seasoned mountaineering instructors, including Ludar Singh, Deshraj Bug Singh, and Dina Nath. And at that point, if you look at this, it takes a whole team just to make that climb. So congratulations on the achievement, and kudos on that, because so often we talk about the corrupt officers or officers that are not in it for the right reasons. And this just goes to remind us that there are so many more officers that, as you said, Angus, have their heart and soul into making their communities better. And that's why they joined the police force. Oftentimes a thankless job where they are not compensated well, especially in some countries where the income is quite low, but they really have a passion to help the community and try to make it better. So again, congratulations, and to all of the team there.
Indeed, well done to them. And well, as I say, we're often accused of being an anti-India channel, and we're not. And I often have to say we're not anti-India. We are very pro-India. We're great lovers of India. But one area which I will unapologetically attack India about is its social problems in relation to women. And so my story today is a pretty horrific one, actually. And again, it is so indicative of this inherent dangerous problem that infects Indian society. That is its treatment of women. And just yesterday, here in one of our main newspapers, I found another article. Again, this is just one of so many, but this was another story that hit even Western mainstream media. A young girl, a 15-year-old girl, was gang raped. This is in India, of course. Was gang raped in South Odisha. When she escaped her gang rape, she then was picked up by a truck driver who offered her a lift, and the truck driver sexually assaulted her as well. So, and this actually isn't an unusual story. We've talked about stories like this, very similar stories where girls have been sexually assaulted, they go to report it, and then they find they're subjected to a second sexual assault. So again, when we say India has a problem, this is absolutely horrific. Well, again, this is a drop in the ocean of the real inherent problem in India. Again, James and I, we often talk about this issue of how women are treated as not even just second-class citizens. They're treated like sexual objects. for the use of Indian men on a regular basis. It's absolutely appalling. And if ever there was an argument to justify the establishment of Khalistan, this is it, because I have no doubt that most decent, ordinary Indians, and most especially the Sikh community, want to cut themselves away from this disgusting issue of Indian society. They want to set up their own nation just to free themselves of this deep infection. It's horrific. But anyway, a big story is actually just emerging from Karnataka. And it is, I have to say, it's just head-shakingly shocking. In Karnataka, the government has actually had to start a special investigation into allegations of a mass burial at Dharmasthala, a major pilgrimage centre, following a confession. This is a whistleblower from a former sanitation worker that has actually managed to shock even India. Now, on July the 3rd, that's a couple of weeks ago, a formal complaint was issued to police by this gentleman. He's a Dalit. He's from the lowest caste. He was a sanitation worker. He cleaned toilets and things. You know, that's a typical job for a lowest caste member of Indian society. He actually whistleblowed. He revealed that between the years of 1998 and 2014, he was instructed to bury hundreds of bodies of women and children. Some of the victims, he claimed, had been raped. And as he said in his own words, many of the female bodies were without clothing or underwear. Some bore clear signs of sexual assault and violence, wounds or strangulation that indicated violence. Now, this guy, he was a 48-year-old sanitation worker. He, of course, is a Dalit, which I said is, they are treated like dirt in India under this unfortunate caste system. So it's been very hard for him to actually have the courage, first of all, to stand up and raise this. Because usually Dalits are treated so appallingly that they're never listened to. They're treated, not even like third-class citizens. They're just treated like dog dirt, let's call it. And he said he was coerced. He was basically forced by some what he called influential people, and we know under the caste system what that means, into performing the burials to protect himself and his family. Now, a lawyer under the Karnataka High Court said that he claimed there are 367 missing girls in this area, in this town, Dharmasthala. And as the lawyer said, it is very difficult to take the temple head on. It's a kingdom in itself. The temple has 75,000 staff and $4.5 billion, in fact, over $4.5 billion worth of income. It is immensely powerful and it is immensely rich. And in Indian society, this means a lot. It means it wields a huge amount of power and influence. And the lawyer was amongst a large delegation of lawyers who actually met the Chief Minister of Karnataka to talk about this. And the lawyer said that most of the killings that had taken place in Dharmasthala over the years were usually associated with either politics or a land grab. And as he said, nobody has to date dared to go against the temple, not even previous chief ministers, not even prime ministers. So this gives an indication of just how powerful this temple is, because nobody's been able to actually, even though the fact that they knew these things were going on, nobody had the courage or the ability to stand up and call it out for what was happening. Now, some of the details that emerged are pretty horrific, and I can't even repeat some of them. But basically, among the bodies, this Dalit, this witness, this whistleblower has claimed, he gave one example. He said there was a teenage girl wearing her school uniform, showing clear signs of sexual assault and a strangulation mark on her neck. They instructed me to dig a pit and bury her along with her school bag. That scene remains disturbing to this day, he said. Another body he recalled was that of a woman in her 20s whose face had been burned with acid. I witnessed many incidents, he says, where poor and destitute men who came begging in the area were systematically murdered. The method of killing them was extremely cruel. They would be tied to chairs in rooms and suffocated from behind using towels. And they took place in my presence, he said. So he witnessed these things going on. He then said he was instructed to bury these bodies in distant forest areas. During my employment period, I buried dead bodies in several locations throughout the area, sometimes instructed to burn the bodies using diesel. Now, he claims that in December 2014, he himself had to flee Dharmasthala with his family after a female minor, so a child in his own family, was allegedly sexually assaulted by someone linked to his supervisors. And then, as he said, since then, we've been living in hiding in fear for our lives in a neighbouring state. Now, of course, being a Dalit, it's very difficult to be taken seriously. He can make complaints, he can make accusations, but being from the lowest caste, nobody's going to take him seriously. Nobody's going to listen to him. So in absolute frustration and desperation, he said he's actually himself exhumed one of the bodies in secret. He took the skeletal remains of this exhumed body to the principal civil judge and judicial magistrate at the Beltangadi court and said, look what I found. Here is proof of what I'm saying. And he said he's willing to identify additional burial sites and name the perpetrators, but only if granted witness protection. And he has publicly announced for his own safety, he said that he has also submitted a sealed envelope naming the accused persons to a Supreme Court lawyer in case he was magically disappeared or silenced or harmed. Of course, yeah, very powerful people will clearly want to ensure this guy disappears. And of course, there's lots and lots of details and lots of stories of missing girls. And again, it's just been an ongoing story for almost 40 years in this area. Now, in fact, some of these killings and mysterious disappearance in the state go back to even 1979. Wow. So, who is behind this, and what is this all about, and why is it a bigger story even than it first appears? Well, the administration of this temple, this Dharmasthala temple, has been controlled by a powerful family called the Heggardi family. And Virendra Heggardi is the head of this. He's serving as the 21st Dhammadhikari, or hereditary head, since 1968. Now, this guy, Heggardi, is a recipient of India's second highest civilian award, the Padma Vibhushan, awarded by the Indian government. He's also a member of the Parliament's upper house. So he's a member of the Indian government, effectively, as a part of the upper house. And he was actually nominated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself, his own party, the BJP, in 2022. Now, his family, of course, wields massive influence and power in the region. They oversee a huge network of institutions. So it's been very, very difficult to call them to account. And indeed, in 2012, the family came under public scrutiny after the rape and murder of a 17-year-old girl, a resident of Dharmasthala. Her body was discovered in a wooded area bearing signs of sexual assault and brutal violence. And the victim's family have always said consistently that the perpetrators were tied to the temple's leadership. It's very clear what's going on here. The Hindu state are trying to protect these culprits, as the main religious head of the temple is a parliament member of the Hindu Radical Party, BJP. He's also got links to the RSS. So again, this area has been the subject of a very, very powerful family, a very, very powerful individual who is being protected because he is a member of the RSS. He is a friend of the BJP. He is basically another Hindutva person. He is a representative of the RSS. He has been assaulting, and members of his temple clearly have allegedly been assaulting, raping, and then murdering young girls, children, school children, and then murdering them and ensuring that they're buried away, hidden away deep in the forest or wherever, in mass graves. This is an absolutely outrageous scandal. And of course, now they're trying to cover it up. They're trying to bury the news. But news is breaking, it's spreading, it's shocking India. Of course, any decent Indian would be absolutely horrified by this, but it is very typical of what is going on in India. James, I find this an absolute scandalous story.
Absolutely, Angus. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the currying of favor by those in politics, those with money when it comes to the criminal justice system. And again, here is clear evidence of their ability to manipulate and work the system in their favor to turn a blind eye to such atrocities that are taking place. And if they are not held to account, then what protections, again, are there for the victims of crime? And we also reported earlier how difficult it is for people to get witness protection in India because they are so short-staffed and they don't have the budget for it, that it is very rare that it happens because there is no actual policy to protect witnesses. So that will be another concern that this individual has while he is in hiding, trying to keep his family safe. No person should have to be in hiding to keep their family safe. It should be the role of the community, of the government, of law enforcement to work with them to protect them. And unfortunately, that's where the system is failing. And it has led to this very long-term problem of rape and murder of individuals in that region, Angus.
Yeah, indeed. As I say, it just seems to be endemic in Indian society, this treatment of women that allows so many sexual assaults to happen, and the perpetrators just getting away with it time and time again. It's just an international scandal. It's appalling. And India can never call itself a superpower. It certainly can never join the top table globally whilst this sort of horror goes on in its own society. It doesn't even belong in the third world. It just does not belong in any society. It's absolutely appalling. So the Indian government have got a massive task ahead of it to do something about this. So now, but unfortunately,
and they have been called out by the UN for this problem for decades, and as much as they give lip service to saying they're trying to fix it, there just isn't a real tangible difference in the statistics, Angus. In fact, it seems to be getting worse before it gets better.
Indeed, it does. And unfortunately, sexual assaults against women is not just an issue in India. Unfortunately, of course, it does occur over the world. And even here in the West, and certainly here in the UK, there's been this ongoing scandal, which I've talked about on several occasions. This is the grooming gangs. It's Islamic grooming gangs who've been targeting young English girls and particularly young Sikh girls. And it's been going on for decades. And the British government, Starmer, has been under enormous pressure to launch a public inquiry. He has finally relented. I mean, it took a long time and a lot of pressure for him to finally agree to a national inquiry, which in itself is suspicious. And we've made our own conclusions about why Starmer was reluctant to launch a national inquiry. Is because it's likely he was involved from a legal perspective, trying to make the issue, trying to bury the issue, because he, as our public prosecutor, was directly responsible for hiding and trying to bury the fact that it was going on. And anyway, finally, he has relented. Now, what I'm delighted to say, as always, it has always been the Sikh community since the 1970s who were up there the first. They were the first people to stand up and call it out and saying, look, this is what's going on in British society. We need to do something about it. And of course, they were ignored for many, many years. It was only when it started happening to white girls, young white girls, that the British government and British law enforcement started actually to believe them, started to take notice of it. Again, that sort of, I would say it's almost an entrenched systemic racism, because they just didn't want to believe the Sikh community. It's not affecting white girls, so why should we care? There's a bit of that going on. But finally, the British society has taken notice. And but as always, it's been the Sikh community that have formed this vanguard, that have formed this front end of actually taking realistic, on-the-ground action to try and stop it happening. In the failure of the police, because the British police have been absolutely scandalously failing in their duty to protect young girls in this country against these Islamic grooming gangs. And again, the argument is believed it's because they were afraid of being accused of being racist, which is a pretty specious argument in itself. But anyway, ultimately, though, the Sikh community have stood up once again, and they have now launched, and I've referred to in previous stories about Sikh Youth UK, Deepa Singh's organisation has been fabulously active in this regard. They've been going around the country here in the UK with these, what they call emergency seminars, highlighting to local communities of what's going on, warning local communities to look out for the warning signs, keep an eye out for it, because there've been a huge increase suddenly in attacks against young Sikh girls. So they've been going around the Sikh communities around the UK saying, these are the signs you need to look out for. We need to find out what's going on. We need to report it. And we obviously need to do something about it. And so even just, I think this week, the latest event was in Walsall, that's in the Midlands. And it is basically designed to raise awareness of this grooming scandal going on. Now, one other initiative which has been launched is the National Sikh Inquiry. And this is a brilliant initiative by the Sikh community. And they are asking, they set up a website, and it's a website designed to help Sikh girls or even families who've been affected by this to report it, because as I keep saying over and over again about these issues, particularly hate crimes, it relates to hate crimes or sexual assaults, whatever. Governments cannot do anything about it unless they know exactly the extent of the problem and what form the problem takes. So it's really, really important that the data is collected. And so what this initiative is about is trying to collect the evidence, collect the data, get the information, because then it can be collated, analysed, and then policies installed to do something about it. And they say the National Sikh Inquiry is appealing to young Sikh females who live in the UK from the 1960s onwards. And as they say, please take a moment to listen. You may have experienced grooming, abuse or exploitation as a teenager or young adult. You may not even realised it. You might even feel that it wasn't even a crime, because grooming often makes victims feel like it was their own choice. But, of course, it wasn't your choice. You were manipulated, taken advantage of, and what happens matters. And especially those from traditional Punjabi families speaking about these things can feel impossible. That, of course, there's a fear, a stigma and a sense of shame. Now, of course, this could have happened many years ago. Now the victims could be happily married, you've got children, etc., and you don't want to revisit these horrible memories. But, as they say, more than ever, your voice matters, and the inquiry is listening, as they say. It doesn't matter how long ago it happens. You may not remember every name or detail, doesn't matter, but every individual, even tiny pieces of evidence can help protect future generations. You can stop this happening to someone else. You are not alone, you are not to blame, and you deserve justice. Please speak up, it's your time, is their appeal on their website, and it's absolutely right, and it's supported by most of the mainstream Sikh organisations here in the UK. And there is a form to fill in, and I would urge anybody in the community who has been affected by this, please submit forms, get your evidence in, tell everybody in your community, mention it at the Gurdwaras. Make sure that everybody knows about this initiative, because these crimes must be reported, even tiny details, because they help form the policy. They force the government to do something about it. And this form on the website is pretty extensive. Yes, you do have to give your information, but you can remain anonymous. But please do, obviously, they need to get back to you to talk about it, to make sure that the evidence is genuine and credible. They do need some personal information, but it will be treated completely anonymously and carefully. So please don't be afraid to put that in. Get onto the website, have a look at it, and as I say, if you or your family have been affected by this, or you know somebody who might have been affected, school friends or whatever, get them to please submit any information, because this is the only way that anything can be done about it, because it is, once again, it's up to the Sikh community to do something about this, because the government, even the British police, have failed spectacularly to do anything about this. It's only now under massive pressure, again, from grassroots people like the Sikh community, that they've actually got off their asses and doing something about it. So, but again, the momentum's building on this. Well done to Sikh Youth UK, well done to this initiative and those behind this initiative and all the organisations who are pushing this, because something must be done about it, and it will only be done if every one of you out there gets involved and helps in this initiative. James.
Absolutely, Angus. And this is something that we see in many different aspects of stories that we bring. Unfortunately, we are a news and current events program, so we do report on, unfortunately, a lot of the negative things. And again, this is something that we see when it comes to all of the criminality that we report on, is the lack of evidence and the lack of people coming forward. So this form and this way to use technology to do it online makes it so much more streamlined and accessible for people to submit their history, to submit evidence, to submit all of this. So again, it's long overdue, but again, as Angus said, for our viewers, encourage others that have experienced these crimes and these horrific actions to really dig deep and find the bravery and the voice to speak out, so that this way it can be heard and that you can actually heal from the tragedy and the trauma.
Indeed, and as I said, for those of you in the UK, and of course we do have a good audience in the UK, just even pin a notice up on the notice board in the Gurdwara or wherever, but just get the word out that this is going on, and people must submit any information that they know. Really, really important. So good luck to that initiative. Let's hope it bears fruit. Right, James, clock marching on as always. We're up against the clock once again. We have to zip through our comments as always, unfortunately. We'll start off with G Singh. Yeah, again, we had a lot of comments about the land pooling, even more comments pulled in. And very clearly, so many people are against it. And this comment really is quite concerning, because what G Singh is saying is it's not just a dangerous concept. is that this person believes that land pooling is being marketed as optional, but on the ground it's actually being forced upon people. In other words, it appears it's being marketed as this great tool where everybody benefits. It's this great initiative where even the farmers benefit. But in reality, it does look like it is a land grab. It does look like that people are effectively being strong-armed into accepting it, whether they think it's good for them or not, James.
Absolutely, Angus, and I've been following this story very closely, and there are a lot of groups in Punjab as well as other areas that are speaking out about the land grab, about this land pooling, and even people in other states outside of Punjab are speaking up on their behalf, stating that this looks like like a sheep and wolf, or like a wolf in sheep's clothing, that they are coming in looking all friendly and cuddly and warm, but they're actually just screwing people when it gets down to it. So again, we'll be watching this story and we'll bring you further reports next week or as things progress.
Indeed. And GSG Human comment, because of course my Punjabi is absolutely fluent now, of course. He said with a slightly tongue-in-cheek. This translates as, thank you, Google. Behind these threatening emails, the Indian government is trying to take over the Darbar Sahib, Akal Takht Sahib, through military force. The Darbar Sahib is dearer than life to the Sikh community, and Sikhs have been sacrificing their lives to protect their Darbar Sahib. This, of course, refers to the bomb threats, which fortunately were just hoaxes. But yeah, I mean, it really highlights the point that the Golden Temple of Darbar Sahib is so fundamental to the Sikh faith, to Sikhs wherever they are in the world. It is that core, it is that basic, it is that home of Sikhi. And any threat against it, and particularly any threat from the Indian government, is so symbolic, James, that any attack, wherever it comes from, it affects every single Sikh wherever they are on this planet.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not only of such significance to the Sikh community, but also to the international heritage of this facility that is just an icon in terms of architecture, in terms of the spiritual importance and significance, and of course the historical religious importance of it as well. So it's on so many levels. And thank goodness it was just a hoax, but it also shows the severity to which some unstable individuals could be on the extreme side and take action such as that. But again, thank goodness this was just a hoax.
Actually, in fact, that's a good point. It does bring to mind those statues. I think it was in Afghanistan that the Taliban blew up. Were they Buddhist statues anyway? They're thousands of years old, and they blew them up as fake idols or for whatever extremist religious reasons. But those did not belong to the Taliban. They belonged to humanity. They were historic. It doesn't matter what they represented. The fact is that they were historic things that belong to humanity, and to destroy something like that for whatever current prevailing perspective you have was just deeply, deeply wrong. And the Harmandir, the Darbar Sahib is the same. It is such an important part of humanity now. Because it's so old and so significant. It's not just important, as you rightly say, James, to Sikhs. It's actually important to the world, to society in general. And any attack against it isn't just an attack against Sikh. It is actually an attack against humanity and our combined collective heritage. So yeah, we all care about it, obviously. 1S1 and 2. I haven't seen the comments from 1S1 and 2 for quite a while. Welcome back to the channel. This is global geopolitics. Yeah, your comment, Trump's playing the same game that he played with Russia and Iran. And this refers to Trump siding with Pakistan, of course, with a recent spat between Pakistan and India after the Pahalgam issue. The political dynamics here are really, really complex. And as you say, Trump's siding with Pakistan because he doesn't want them to get close to China. Of course, there are deep ties between China and Pakistan. Pakistan provides a route for China to the Indian Ocean, geographically speaking and logistically speaking. So, of course, China is trying to seduce Pakistan as an ally. Trump doesn't want that. The West doesn't really want that. The West are trying to isolate China. They're trying to bring in Pakistan and India into alignment with the West as opposed to let them align with China. But as you say, everybody knows now that the Indian leadership is shameless, evil, corrupt and immature. Couldn't disagree, James.
Absolutely. And in the interest of time, I'll just leave it at that, Angus, and we'll move forward.
Indeed. SSK Trucking, Britain took over the Khalsa Raj. At least they should be supported. Now, this is an important point, and I have said this for a very, very long time. Because it was the British Empire that defeated the Sikh Empire all those years ago in the 19th century. And ever since then, the contribution that Sikh community have given to British society, whether through the military or whatever, it doesn't matter. We actually owe a huge debt of honour to the Sikh community. And in my opinion, and I think in many other people's opinions, is that the British should therefore be morally obliged on every level to support the establishment of Khalistan, because that is what we owe the Sikh community. That is what we owe the Sikh people. After we took away their empire, then now in modern 21st century, the only way we can ever recompense that legitimately, and I would say in a balanced way, is to support Khalistan, is to make sure that we give back a Khalsa Raj, that we give back a sovereign nation back to the Sikh community, James.
Absolutely. And it's all about the historic significance of failure. And people may think that's an oxymoron, but it's not. It's significant. It's a failure. It's historic. And it's time to make those reparations to support and give back to the failings of the past.
Yeah. TC talks about surrender Starmer. We're running out of time, so unfortunately I'm going to zip through this. But yes, human rights lawyer. Starmer is a well-known human rights lawyer. Why on earth is he not standing up for people like Jagtar Singh Johal, the people in Manipur who are suffering, the Christians, etc., etc.? Is there a reason? Is there a link to Russia, as you point out? A big subject all on its own. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go into that. But yes, there is that weird paradox where Starmer is supposedly a human rights lawyer, and yet he is not standing up as in the most powerful position in the UK, standing up for people's individual human rights. Surjit Kaler. As I often say, I do like to pick out random hellos, and this is a wave and hello. Thank you for joining the channel, and thank you for your contributions, much appreciated. And of course, to all those others who just dip in to say hello, good morning, good day, or whatever, or just even just a simple wave, or just a simple love heart, all appreciated. Bobby Singh, I always watch your channel. Well, thank you for doing that. Tell others. Very knowledgeable on current affairs. We do our best. Like your analysis? Well, it's our perspective, not necessarily the truth, or not necessarily, we might not get it right. It is our opinion, it is our perspective, but we always do try and report the truth, James.
Absolutely. And we appreciate when we get corrected, because we do make mistakes. So thank you to everyone for the amazing comments of support, but also to those who actually correct us on occasion.
And SSI Singh says, appreciated. Well, I would, as I always do, turn this back on our audience. We appreciate you. We can't do this show without you guys. So thank you. Spread the word. Get more people watching us. We need that wider support. Stay safe reminds us timely. 17th of August. Yes, the next iteration of the referendum happening in Washington, D.C. What it's all about, it is all about the Khalistan. It's all about ensuring that Khalistan is established in the foreseeable future. As Tajinder says, it is. It's our need. We can't survive without it. Well, you will survive, but the point is, it's not about survival, it's about thriving. The Sikh community will thrive after the establishment of Khalistan, James.
Absolutely. And while you're in Washington, stop by and say hi to Trump for me, because he kicked me off the Truth platform.
Let's not go down that route. We will instead end the show on a very positive pro-Khalistan Zindabad message, as we always like to do. And that does wrap up Perspectives for another day, and indeed another week. So please don't forget to keep your comments coming in. Always appreciated. We do read every single one of them. Do let us know things you'd like us to report. Many of you have referred to stories, certainly in the last day or two, that we have, of course, covered and will cover. Thank you for those. Don't forget you can message us directly at message@sutledgetv.com. Then you'd like to bring to our attention directly. But that is it for another week. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your support. We really do appreciate it. It is a goodbye from me. It is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next week.